Welcome everyone to Working Through It Wednesday with the Behavioral Alliance of South Carolina. Today we are blessed with the presence of Kate Counts, and she's going to discuss a little bit with us on terms of community and building a community. But before we get started, I just wanted to remind you all to think about filling out our survey following this QR code to answer 5 questions at the end of our webinar to let us know how we can better meet the needs of our community. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to introduce Kate. I've known Kate for quite a while. She has been my yoga teacher, and I follow her practice and her words and her guidance. So I'm thrilled to have her here today. Kate's been guiding movement in the wellness community for over a decade. Education has always been important to her, from teaching in the elementary schools for years of learning about the body and the functional fitness and diving into the importance of social responsibility. Kate is always filling the shoes of a student to bring a deeper sense of knowledge to all she does. Kate has taught as many different modalities of movement, group fitness, personal training, spin, and yoga. Right now, she teaches weekly classes in her hometown of Charleston, South Carolina, that focuses on social justice, privilege, and building relationships with ourselves and others. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Kate. Kate, thank you so much for being here today.
Erin, thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be in this space with y'all today. And I think it's just a really cool thing that you guys have created as an aspect of your organization to have a Working Through Wednesdays. I think that's amazing. So thank you for having me. Before we start, because I am a yoga instructor, I would love to just start by just grounding us. I have no idea what your day has been like, but I know that you're here right now. And sometimes when we get to a spot, our minds are all over the place. And when we're going to be in conversation, it's just nice to ground ourselves. And the best way I know how to do that is by breathing. So eyes open or eyes closed. Just take a moment. If you're sitting, just take a moment to feel your pelvis on your chair and find your spine. The spine is a huge part of community building in my eyes. So just noticing each vertebrae as they begin to stack, and relax your shoulders. Let your shoulders just glaze down the back and feel the space in between your ears and your shoulders. And then relax your jaw. Sometimes we will hold a lot of tension and stress and worry in our face and our jaw. So just give yourself permission to let that go. And take a moment to just listen to your breath. Like ask your mind, please listen to my breath. Allow yourself to take an inhale in. And then exhale it out. Do one more. Take the inhale in. Notice how the inhale needs the exhale. And the exhale needs the inhale. And then slowly open your eyes. The inhale needs the exhale, and the exhale needs the inhale, just like we need each other. And for me, anchoring into my breath brings me into community with myself so that I can be in community with others. So that's like where I want to start this conversation. It's first, we have to get to know ourselves better so that we can be in community with others. And there's no like end point to that, Erin. It's not like, okay, I officially know who I am, and now I can be in community. It's a continuously practice that we're constantly in community with ourselves so that we can compete in community with others. It's all interconnected. So thanks for grounding with me. Now let's chat.
Yes, thank you so much. I feel better already.
Yeah, you don't need more than sometimes 30 seconds to just ground. So
absolutely. Well, let's get right into it. So Kate, I know this is always a message in your classes, but why is it important to build relationship and community? Let's just start there.
Because without relationship, we don't have community. Basically, that's where it is. And a lot of times we try to build communities, and we do this in all kinds of different communities without putting in the time time. That's a huge part to create the relationship. So in my eyes, when I think of a strong community, I think of relationship as the foundation, if you were thinking about a home. And if that relationship isn't strong, if there's not clear communication, if you don't have that strong foundation of conflict resolution, accountability, responsibility, everything that's built on that either is going to be strong because the relationship is strong, or it's going to be weak because you didn't take the time to create that. So I just think of it as the foundation of any community. So if you're thinking about like a school community, work community, even like your family as your community and your volunteer community, there's many different aspects of community. And for a really long time, Erin, I was trying to build community without putting in the time for the relationship. And I was constantly finding myself burnt out, overwhelmed, and creating more problems than solutions. So I just think it is where we are right now in history. Like, it is the biggest building block. It's our foundation of how we're going to build our communities for the future to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, the time, it's so critical, and we have to put in the work we do to make sure that we're building the foundation. I love those reminders.
Yeah.
You often speak of trust too, and how important trust is, and relationships, and growing at the speed of trust. Can you tell us more about that and why that's important?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little side story, the story of where that came from. I do a lot of work of building communities across difference in the wellness and yoga community. So when I started to do this work, and I realized that in a lot of the wellness communities that I were in, everyone sort of looked the same. I'll be honest, like there was just really thin, white women. And I was like, I would come into these spaces and I would think like, who's missing? There's people missing from this room, and there's voices missing from this room. And I was like, I want to go and build community and reach out across difference. And so when I first went to do that, I went with sort of a sense of urgency and being like, you need to trust me. I want to and welcome you into my class. You look different from me. And this could be gender, this could be race, this could be sexual orientation, like anything. And I, in my mind in the beginning, was like, why wouldn't you trust me? And I had a dear friend who is a dear friend now, my friend Kanae Miller, who is a Black woman who teaches yoga here in Charleston, and now just statewide and nationwide. And we started to become in relationship. And she was the one that said to me, hold up, we need to build this relationship at a speed of trust. And I said to her, what do you mean? And she said, trust is built at a slower pace. It's showing that you're going to show up. It's showing that when conflict arises, you don't run. That you're able to hold accountability and responsibility in a relationship and say, you know what? I'm sorry I hurt you if I did hurt you, you know, and like taking accountability and taking those lessons and like growing from there. It's also really listening, active listening to other people's lived experience. And so I think, Erin, in the last, I would say in the last 5 years, the pace that I have been building community has been slow, but it has been meaningful. So when anything comes our way, sort of problems or, you know, conflict, we're able to hold that foundation, which I talked to at the beginning, like that foundation is strong, and we have like these communication skills, and we trust each other. Yeah. And so we can carry on instead of the whole house just falling. And so the speed of trust is a huge, and we live in a society that's very fast. We want constant gratification. Oh, there's a problem, let's fix it fast. And I think a lot of the problems that we're facing today will be solved by building community and listening to each other. And so speed of trust is a huge thing. And I am constantly reminding myself of that. I'm like, hold up, speed of trust, slow down, listen.
Right.
Yeah.
Great reminders, great reminders. And
Mhm.
you mentioned this a little bit, but speaking of the variety of relationships that we build within communities and seeking out people that are different from ourselves and different perspectives, how did that process go for you with the variety of different relationships that you've built?
Yeah, because we're not going to be in close relationship with everyone. That's just not, I mean, I'll have to be honest with you, as far as like my like close relationships, real close, I have created a space where the people really close to me have shared a shared value system with me. So we have like shared core values. So those are the people that I am constant in communication with. And because we do share those same core values, we're able to communicate a little bit better. Does that mean that I close off all my relationships to that circle? No, because there's a lot of people outside of that circle that are different from me, that have a lot of different beliefs than me, that do not share the same value system of me, that I can't completely shut off. In a lot of those spaces, those different relationships, conflict will arise, right? And that's why you have that small group of people around your inner circle that you can be like, I'm in relationship with someone that's more of an acquaintance. This is the situation. I need your help. I need your support on this. So that small crew, and I used to think that crew had to be a ton of people. If you've won, you're doing good, okay? That you can call and be like, hey, we share that same value. You totally understand who I am. I can be 100% myself with you. I am in this other relationship where there's some conflict here. I need some help. I need some support. So building those relationships as tiers, out. And then like also being aware, I was thinking about, because I know you do a lot with schools, right? And I was thinking about when I taught fourth grade in North Charleston for 6 years. And that was a community of mine. I had some core teachers that were like close to me that I could go to when I was having a hard time. Yeah.
Right.
Where I was like, there were sometimes when I would lay on their floor and cry. So I'm like, this is hard. And I knew that they wouldn't judge me. They would give me the space just to be. I had the community of my administration, the mentors. I had a relationship with the mentors that I was constantly learning from. Relationship with my students, which was like the core relationship. That is speed of trust. Yeah. Took them a long time to trust me. Trust with their parents. Mm-hmm. But then also like the women who at that point, it was mostly women that worked in the cafeteria. I had a relationship with them. I had a relationship with the man who cleaned my room. Actually, our relationship got to be really close. And so there's so many different relationships. And I think sometimes we can put blinders on and we don't see how interconnected all of those relationships are in the community. True. And how like interdependent, and that's just like a micro community, but that we are on each other. The person that I could lay on the floor and cry to, the man who would come into my room at the end of a really long day and he would take the trash, but he would look me in the eye and be like, hey, how are you? I mean, it's going to make me cry a little bit, Erin, because I remember him looking at me when I was having a hard day and I'd be like, and he'd be like, yeah. But that inner exchange, or, the administrator that you can go to and be like, I need your expertise, and so almost the ecosystem of the community and how every piece relies, they're all different, I'm probably not going to my administrator's office and laying on the floor and crying, but you have to have that someone in your sphere for that. So, and, building that across difference, the biggest thing that I can say, like the different types of relationship, and when you're building across difference from different lived experience, is the cornerstone of active listening.
Absolute truth, Kate. Absolute truth. There's been so much recently in terms of coming back from a pandemic of social unrest and all the pieces of what can we do to help our students and our families. And it always comes back to building relationships. Exactly what you said. That is the cornerstone. That is the foundational piece. We can move forward together if we have positive and healthy relationships that are built on trust. So thank you for that. And my next question is in terms of around this monthly focus that we have is on restoring relationships and community. So in terms of restoring relationships where trust has been broken or communication has been lost, what's your insight into that?
So the biggest word that comes to mind for me is repair. Like restore, repair. So when harm has been caused, which it happens in community. I mean, that's, Erin, I'm going to say it's inevitable. So, and a lot of times there's we'll go back to that first question. If the foundation isn't strong and there's not like a good, clear communication, like I think of that whole that motto, clear is kind. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to repair. Can it not be repaired? Yeah, it can. There is hope there. But if you have that strong foundation and there is harm that's caused, the biggest thing I think is being able to hold accountability, which is hard because I think sometimes when we have to hold accountability and someone comes to us and they say, I've been hurt. Sometimes our first reaction is to gaslight the person and be like, you're crazy. You took that wrong. So, that didn't happen. That's happened before. And we're going to go back to that corner. Do I?
Yeah. Invalidating someone's
Invalidating.
feelings.
So that's that gaslighting. And that goes back to that cornerstone I was talking to you about active listening. We're not listening to the harm that someone is expressing that we may have caused. So we want to deflect, right? And we're like, no. And instead of listening, really, truly listening, and then taking accountability and saying, I'm sorry. I hear you. I'm from here going to take responsibility. And there's a lot in there about shame, because I think as a society, sometimes we feel shame. And the first thing we do with shame or guilt is like deflect, or we walk away. And I can speak from experience. I've done that before and I've lost relationship because of that. And like I said to you at the beginning, when we were doing the breath, this is ongoing. We're never going to get to a spot where we're like, I am perfect at building relationships. It's a practice, just like the yoga practices. And I think with every relationship, especially when we're restoring, we're just collecting data so that maybe when this happens again, we show up again and we're like, oh, okay, we're practicing. So I think taking responsibility, accountability, and then after that, showing up and showing that you've learned from the harm that has been caused. Mm. And I see this in our country. It's hard to take accountability for history. It's hard to take accountability for things that are happening in real time. And sometimes we don't want to take accountability because it's so overwhelming and we don't know how we're going to fix it. Right. So we'd rather just walk away. So I think the cornerstone of that, Erin, of restoring and repairing is the accountability.
Yeah.
And
holding accountability for ourselves and others. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And for harm. Mm-hmm. We teach our children that a lot. We're like, if something happens, but for me, I say to my kids, I have 3 children, when there's harm caused, yes, say sorry, but say sorry for, repeat what you're sorry for. Mm-hmm.
Not just the act of saying it.
No, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And my husband always says to me, you can say sorry all you want, but when behavior changes, that's sorry in action.
Right. Sorry in action. I love it. And behavior change. He is such a special educator, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he is. He was like, we can say it all the time, but like, and the last thing I'll say about repairing, a lot of times, what I've found, especially working across difference and building community, is we come into communities sometimes with the intention, like we have this intention of doing good, like, oh, that you've probably heard that statement, that was not my intention.
Yeah.
If harm was caused. So I've learned a lot through training that like intention doesn't always equal impact.
Mhm.
And so listening to the impact so that we can fine tune the intention.
Mhm.
And be like, because a lot of times we don't come into relationship being malicious.
Right.
But our intention comes off as causing harm, and then listening to the person that has been caused harm and then coming back into like reviewing that intention.
Mhm. Beautifully said, Kate. Thank you. I
You're
could talk to
welcome.
you all day, but
Me
this is
too.
my last question for you. But I know we could just talk all day, and then we'll turn it into a meditation and a yoga class later.
Right.
My last question for you is in terms of the importance of honesty when repairing relationships. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. That's something that I've decided for this year, for 2022, is for me is radical honesty.
Mm.
And for me, radical honesty is honesty when you come with compassion and love, but you're also speaking the truth, which a lot of times when we find ourselves in conflict in relationship, if you just say to like I've done this with myself, just be honest. And our minds sometimes will be like, don't be honest, that's too harsh, right? And so we like create a maybe fluffed up version of the honesty, because a lot of times we're people pleasers and we don't want to disappoint people. But in the long run, I think being radically honest and really saying how you're feeling, of what you know to be true, on the other side of that is freedom and community and liberation, like being able to talk honestly, even if it might create some sort of disappointment, like good honest, for radical honesty this year. Like if someone asks me to do something, like Erin, when you asked me to do this webinar, I had to sit for a moment and say, do I have the capacity to do this in my life, And the answer was yes, because I'm in relationship with you and I trust you. And I'm like, yes, I do have the capacity. A lot of times what we do is we say yes without even thinking about that. So we're not being honest. And then what happens is we get burnt out, we get resentful, we get overwhelmed. And we're like, why did I say yes to that? When if we truly asked ourselves, do I have the capacity for this to show up in community? And then because of that, when you say yes, and then also saying no, because if I said no to you, there might have been some disappointment on your end, right, Erin? Yeah. And I was
Absolutely, but
absolutely right.
but I would have
I think as a community, we have to learn. That's like a little part of that radical honesty, to be like, if I came to you then and I was burnt out, overwhelmed, didn't make the space for this, I wouldn't be coming as this quality like webinar.
Mhm.
And I'd be doing it because I didn't want to disappoint you.
Right.
So that's like the radical honesty part is such a huge component of how we show up in community.
Beautiful. Thank you for showing
You're
that
welcome.
today. And thank you for being honest and sharing what, your limits and your boundaries, and letting us know that that's okay to do that within the communities and within the people, with the people that we trust. So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah.
These beautiful words today, Kate. I have enjoyed every second of it. I know our viewers will too. And I know I will be seeing you Sunday on the Poorhouse Deck.
I'll be there, Erin. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here. And I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you, Kate. See you soon.
Bye.